Good evening, everybody. This is Kiana, and I hope you're having a good Sunday. I know that I am. I got some extra sleep. And tonight we are going to be talking about a few things. We're going to be talking about the Kamala Harris deepfake. We're also going to be talking about the People Before Profit seminar that I attended. That it was actually hosted by People Before Profit. And we are going to be discussing the hostilities in the Middle East. But before we do, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your input is very important. Also, if you subscribe to this channel, basically what it does is it pushes the videos up in the algorithm. It tells the algorithm that these videos are important. Even if these videos are not pushed up into the algorithm, that does not mean that they're not important, just means that the algorithm has not recognized them yet. Furthermore, I would urge you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's at Real Kiana Canada. So I'm reiterating that. And also, don't forget to follow me on Facebook. I have a new Facebook account that I created a couple of months ago or a few months ago. And it is new, and I share some things on there that I don't often share here on YouTube. So sometimes I'll post a statement. As you know, I no longer have an X account. I actually withdrew that account because of some of the intimidation that was going on, that was being given imprimatur by the state. So I deleted that account, and I feel so much better that I did. So don't forget to actually follow me on Facebook as well. That account is actually in the description of this channel, and you can find it in the description of this video. So before we get into the three topics, I want to tell you like what I spent my week doing. So this last week I spent it this week going into last week going into this week, I spent it, of course, working on a paper for my master's program in international human rights law. And the paper that I'm doing is about the right to life and whether it's absolute in international human rights law. So I've been spending so much time researching that topic, revising the paper. I think I revised this paper like a few times, and then just kind of reading it over, researching, looking for information to support my arguments. I'm going to the library, finding books, reading books, and then again, there was a couple nights that I've actually spent working on this paper where like I went in, I think early in the afternoon, and I didn't leave until like 5 o'clock in the morning. Like I was so tired that day. So I spent my week doing that. I also had an opportunity to actually speak to my family this week. As you know, it's Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving was last Thursday, and I had the opportunity to actually see my mom and speak to my family, something that's very important to all of us. And so that was really the highlight of my week. And although it was disinvited to the event that was at Queen's University Belfast, and what I mean by disinvited is that I didn't receive an invitation, there was an event here at Queen's University Belfast that was hosted by the United States. It was a Thanksgiving meal, it was a luncheon, and so it was marketed toward American students. And so the United States, it did not invite me to that event, maybe because of our ongoing disagreements that we have about human rights. And so, as you know, I am an American citizen. I'm going through transnational repression. And so this could be an element of that as to why I was not invited to this event. But it raises a broader question about consistency, right? Because one, I think that the United States can't have it both ways. You can't say that I am being persecuted. Excuse me, you can't say that I'm not being persecuted and that I am not an international protection applicant, and then at the same time not treat me as a respectable American citizen, like you're doing all the other American citizens abroad. So you can't have it both ways. It's either I am an international protection applicant, and for that reason, you feel like you can't treat me like I am a respectable citizen of the United States of America, or I am American citizen and you are treating me like I'm a respectable citizen of the United States of America. It can't be both. You can't treat me disrespectful in both categories. So we know that this often does happen. People are disrespected and mistreated and persecuted in both categories. But as a nation that is really the core of its international identity is to uphold human rights, whether that is debatable or not, because that is the identity of the United States, and the motto is that the United States is the land of the free, then it should be actually really behaving as such. So I did go to that luncheon anyway. I attended the luncheon, the Thanksgiving luncheon, and there was some pictures taken of all of us at the luncheon. I looked on the Queen's University website and I didn't see my picture on there. That doesn't mean that they decided not to publish my picture. It could be, could not be, we don't know, right? So there's not enough evidence to make a determination on that. And it's really not important for me to actually look in it further. At this event, I noticed that I was the only Black student within this entire event of Americans in this batch of students that were at the luncheon. That's not to say one thing or another. There's not many Black Americans within Belfast. There's only one other maybe two Black Americans that I met. So one was a Black American female, but I think that she went back to the United States. And then there is a Black American that's currently here in Belfast, and he is doing research, doing a PhD, and I met him before. And so there's not that many Black Americans here, but, and not that many programs that are, we'll get into that another time, but so let's go ahead and get into today's topic. As you are aware, there has been some deepfakes that are circulating on the internet about Vice President Kamala Harris. So I think that what happened was that Vice President Kamala Harris, she did like a video where she was, I think it was after Thanksgiving or during Thanksgiving time, but so at any rate, she did it. She went live or did a video. I don't know how this happened, but and she did a video, and she was just kind of speaking about like just life in general and motivating, I think, liberals and Democrats, which was very compelling. But after she published that video statement, there were a number of deepfakes that were going around showing Vice President Kamala Harris allegedly holding, a bottle of, I think, Hennessy and other alcoholic brands. And I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, one looked real. One was, so the one that looked absolutely fake was, I think, the one where Vice President Kamala Harris was holding the bottle of Hennessy. That looked absolutely fake. But the one that looked real was where they showed Vice President Kamala Harris drinking. And there were a number of videos that were being put out by social media influencers saying that Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, was drunk, which I did not believe. in these videos whatsoever. I didn't believe it at all. So basically, when I went to actually do my research on these videos, I went to look at them and I said, these are fake. These are absolutely fake. And so after after I did my research to look to see if these were fake, then it became very evident to me that they were. And ladies and gentlemen, this is very frightening about what's going on in the world today. We're living in the age of social media. Just a moment. So we're living in the age of social media, and I think what's alarming about these deep fakes is that they look absolutely real. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe that this was not put out. I don't think that this was created by just a Joe Schmo behind his laptop. I think that this is a broader campaign from the alphabet agencies that are putting out this kind of content to shape our opinions and our beliefs about what we are supposed to see or supposed to think about certain people in power, influencers, etc. And I think what's very frightening about this video that we've seen, this snippet that they made about Kamala Harris, is that, ladies and gentlemen, they could be doing this to all of us. Just think about it. That video looked absolutely real. One of them it looked real. And I think the distinguishing factor in the video that looked real is that Vice President Kamala Harris looked a bit younger in that video. And not to say that she looks, she looks amazing, but in that video, she looked a little bit younger. And you can tell, I think that was how we recognized, or at least how I recognized that video was fake. But I want to talk about this, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a frightening aspect of the reality and the times that we're living in, is that now people can take an image of you or even a video that you make and create something provocative from it to implicate you in a crime or to implicate you in an act that you did not do. Now, I talked about this before in a prior video that I did. I think it was the Elroy Clark video, where I said that now what is happening is that because we're living in the digital age and the age of AI, now people can actually, especially law enforcement, they can create a profile of you and attach any information on there to discredit you, to isolate you, not only to discredit you and isolate you, but to implicate you in a crime that you didn't commit. This is very frightening, ladies and gentlemen. And I think most people think that it's funny when you see videos like that of our elected leaders, being put through this. And just think about it. If they can do that to an elected official and make it look absolutely real, what can they do to an ordinary person like me and you? You and I, we don't have status. Like, we don't have a lot of followers. We don't have celebrity. We don't have publicity. We're not public figures. And so if they did that to you or I, we would be disparately impacted by that. It would fall harder on us, and it would be more difficult for you and I to actually protect our reputation. This is a character assassination attempt that was put on Vice President Kamala Harris. This is put out into the public to see how the public is going to respond to such attempts to assassinate one's character. This is a propaganda tool that is put out, circulated on social media to see how we'll respond to it, how it'll shape our beliefs and opinions, whether we believe it, whether we don't believe it. And so you have a large segment of the population that probably did believe it and was thinking maybe this did happen. Then you probably had a larger percentage that said, no, this was not true. And then you had those in the middle that was like, that is cool. I want to do that. I want to make a video like that of somebody. And that is what's frightening, is that this is marketed toward impressionable people, especially those that have a IT background, not only an IT background, but a graphics background. This is marketed toward them to encourage them to create deep fakes like this. It's a frightening time to be in. You don't know what you're up against. And if you are a political figure, if you are an activist or a human rights defender, this is very frightening, because we understand that the state does not like human rights defenders and activists. And the reason why the state dislikes human rights defenders and activists is because both challenge the status quo. And if you are challenging the status quo, then that means that you see that there's something wrong with it. You feel that there needs to be change. Most activists like you and I, what we do is we try and make peaceful change. And then we are non-aggressive, non-violent activists. And yet, and those are the kind of activists that the state dislikes the most, because the state can't push you into radicalism. The state can't push you into this category of people. And that's what the state likes the most. They like those who are radical, because it's easier to damage that person's reputation, arrest them, publicize them all over the media as the bad person, the Horn effect. And so I think that we really just need to be very cognizant of this being circulated about not only our public officials, but also about ordinary citizens that don't have power. This is a very disempowering act, being able to create a deep fake of someone who can't protect themselves against it. You know, for example, if someone created a deep fake and they circulated it to a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a university or an employer, there is probably little room that you will have to be able to, you know, I guess, protect yourself, put up a defense against that, because in a lot of these instances, people are unwilling to talk about it. They're just willing to actually ruminate or, you know, kind of scrutinize it and make a judgment off of it. So off of the heuristics alone, they want to make a judgment, which is quite unfortunate. And so I just think that we really need to be cognizant of these deep fakes. It's something that I think lawyers and human rights organizations, that they should be working on eliminating in the social media sphere, making sure that these are not being created to disenfranchise a person. These deep fakes should probably only be used for parody purposes. I think in the Kamala Harris situation, it may have been used for just parody for giggles, right? But there were some videos that I had watched and listened, and some podcasts that I listened to, that I think the direction that I'm inclined to say that they believe that it was real, unfortunately. And so we just need to really pay attention to that. Okay, so next we're talking about the People Before Profit seminar that I attended. So I attended a People Before Profit seminar. I think that was on Wednesday. And at this seminar, they were talking about the new presidency in the United States of America. So People Before Profit is a socialist group. It's in Dublin, Ireland, so in the Republic of Ireland. It's also here in Northern Ireland. It may be in other parts of Europe and may even be in the United States, because the person that was giving the seminar was an American citizen. So I'm inclined to say that People Before Profit is also within the United States. And they were very disappointed that Kamala Harris, the Democrats in general, lost the election. And so I think the meeting convened to, I want to say, to strategize, to think of ways in which to end, I won't say end, to put Trump probably out of the presidency. And so that's very admirable, right? But there is a lot to take into consideration. And so at that meeting, I made it very clear that I am not a Republican. I am not a supporter of the right-wing establishment. But there were some mistakes that I felt that the Democrats had made. And so I actually talked about that. I said that the mistakes that I think that the Democrats made in this election was that they didn't really get to know their base well. And what do I mean by that? So there were a few issues that I think were overlooked. One was the economy, the short-term economy that was being overlooked by the Democrats during this election. And so there were a number of American citizens that were talking about they couldn't put food on their table. They were having difficulties being able to fill up their gas tank. There were a few videos that I watched where American citizens were actually brought to tears with the thought of unable to make ends meet. And so you, as elected official, and you are wishing to be elected again, you really have to pay attention to your constituency. It's very important. I mean, don't you think? You have to pay attention to those that you want to vote for you. And so that was an issue that I brought up, that I felt like the Democrats they didn't see this as a serious problem within the United States. And then I also said that the thing with, okay, so I think that the Democrats said that Trump was garbage, or I'm paraphrasing. I'm not sure who said that. There was a garbage comment. I think it was someone in the Democratic Party who said that, it was something about garbage, right? And so what happened was the president-elect, what he did was he bought a garbage truck, and for some people, they thought that that was very witty. And they thought that that was, so the person who actually thought that that was very witty was Piers Morgan. And so I brought that up in the People Before Profit meeting. I said, like, so when that happened, you know, that gained a lot of attention. That became a very popular, I think, campaign, a way to campaign to constituents. And also, I think I also brought up that the president-elect was in the McDonald's and he was cooking fries, or actually like serving fries, and within the McDonald's store. So some people thought that that was, they liked that. And so I think that this was the mark that was missed by the Democrats, because I think what the president-elect was doing was that he was maybe pandering, but also, but in a way that for the public, it seemed authentic, in a way for the public who was voting for Trump. So for example, the Republicans and those who are on the right side, or the right-wing side, what they thought was that was a very authentic act, right? It was a very authentic political act, is what they thought. And so I think what was wrong about, or in this case, where the Democrats kind of lost their constituency at sea was because the Democrats focused more on the celebrities, and of course that is important, right? Sometimes people are influenced to vote by seeing their favorite celebrities and pop stars, at a Democratic National Convention. But for those constituents, those voters who are having a difficult time making ends meet, I think what they wanted to hear more of is how the Democratic Party was going to make it better for ordinary citizens. And I think that the Democratic Party missed the mark on that. So that's what I brought up at the meeting. And so I think that at the People for Profit meeting, they had their view of what went wrong, and they thought that, a lot of it had to do with propaganda. And I think rightly so for some of the people at that meeting, that they were very nervous that there is going to be 4 more years of the president-elect. And I think that those feelings are, I think that they are legitimate. I think that those feelings are not to be ignored. So the last thing that I brought up at this meeting, as I said, this is, I think, an opportunity for the disenfranchised, and also not only the disenfranchised, but those that are finding themselves like in the middle and not voting red or blue, but more so within the middle, that's trying to move away from establishment politics. I think that this is enough time. You have 4 years. And so I brought up at the seminars that there's 4 years now to actually create and work on creating a new party that puts things like, making the minimum wage $15 an hour, which is still not enough. Healthcare, access to healthcare, so a livable wage, access to healthcare, free education, such as free postgraduate education or free secondary education. These all are important. And whether or not this is going to happen remains to be seen, but it's enough time. It's 4 years, and it's enough time to try and really establish a very strong party and to align the policy plan. So I think that was another issue in this election, is that there were too many competing interests in the Democratic Party. And I think that now it's time to try and build a party that does not have competing interests, that all of those interests, policy interests, are aligned. And so I thought that was a very interesting seminar that I got to attend, and I'm curious to know, like, how they're going to go about tackling this issue. It's very interesting. I want to know more. Lastly, so there is also, as we know, there's hostilities in the Middle East. So I think last week what happened was that, just a moment. I think what happened was there, if you've been following international news, you know that there was some ongoing hostilities between Israel and Lebanon. So there was ongoing hostilities between these two nation states. and that have been going on for quite some time. Then this week, what happened was that there was a ceasefire, and there was some hope that the hostilities would end. And so both parties seemed cooperative, seemed as if they were both ready for this ceasefire. And I think they actually even signed on to the ceasefire, agreeing to the terms of the ceasefire. And then there were a couple of things that happened. One of the things that happened was that there was a video put out by Hamas, and that video showed an Israeli American hostage, I think, still being held, and there was a video released of an Israeli American. And so I think that that was a setback in the peace agreements because of that video that was released, because that showed that there was still an American Israeli there that was being held captive, not being released. And one of the agreements that the United States had was for all Americans to be released. And so there was some hostilities about, I'm quite sure that that is what upended this ceasefire proposal. And then another thing I think that really upended this ceasefire proposal was that, just, let's see. So I think another thing that upended this ceasefire proposal was that after Israel signed on to the agreement, there were still hostilities coming from Lebanon into Israel. And so Israel responded to those hostilities, and now they're back at it again. And this goes to the original video that I made about maybe a week ago, where I said that when you sign a ceasefire proposal, you are supposed to give it your word, that you are going to end hostilities. You're not going to renege on the deal that you made. And signing a ceasefire proposal, thinking that one nation is not going to respond if you continue to attack them, is really not an intelligent way of looking at things. To put it another way, so the moment that Israel and Lebanon signed this ceasefire deal, I think that that was a sign to Lebanon that, okay, it's time to end these hostilities, because Israel is agreeing to do that. But once Israel did agree to end the hostilities, then, and was pulling out of Lebanon, then what happened was Lebanon attacked Israel, is what the reports are saying. And then now they're back at it again, both of them. So it's unfortunate, because war is never okay, no matter who's perpetuating it, right? No matter who is perpetrating it, war is never going to be okay. And there is a lot that's going on in this issue. If you, like, there's a few videos that I have watched where families and children, they are fighting for food, like literally like fighting each other for food. There's not enough aid, and so there is many innocent people that are impacted by war. And I think what's very important is for those in power to really consider like how this is impacting the civilian population, because this is impacting civilians on both sides. This is impacting civilians in Israel. This is impacting the women, children, of course, those innocent men in Gaza. And war is never going to be okay. And again, why I say that is, I can't imagine if I live in Belfast, and I can't imagine this happening here, like that's a devastating thing. And I think that we need to really ponder on this, contemplate on it, because at any time that could be a nation where we're living in. And endorsing these actions, endorsing war crimes, endorsing crimes against humanity, endorsing war in general, is not a good thing for us to do. And again, I made it clear in my video that I am in allegiance with the Jewish people, because the Jewish people have always been on my side. And so I'm going to always be in allegiance with the Jewish people. But saying that, it's important to say that these hostilities must end for the greater good of the community. To reiterate, war is never okay. It does not matter who is putting that act into circulation. There are innocent people on both sides. We need to think about the women and the children, and we need to think about the men that are innocent too on both sides. I would urge Hamas to release those hostages. They do not need to be there anymore. They didn't belong there in the first place. And it's important that they release those for the greater good of the world and for the greater good of the community. The way that you end these hostilities is by releasing, this is my opinion, and of course, I am not working in intelligence. I actually am not connected to the Israeli government. I'm not connected to the United States. So this is just my thought process on this. I feel like if you release those hostages, then this might end. There might be an opportunity for peace. And I think that is what everyone wants, is peace. And it's time. It is time for peace. With that, I want to say thank you for listening to this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel at Real Kiana Canada, at Real Kiana Canada. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.